Hello folks, back with Ancient Cosmography. Well, my last video still has 0 views, and it's arguably my most important video until this video, which is probably more important, which will probably get -3 views or something. Negative. Alright, so, in my last one I was showing how the confirmation, because I've said that the ancient Egyptian underworld spells and different spells in the Book of Two Ways are actually geography to there's like a spell for Baja California here. There's a spell for Vancouver Island and maybe Haida Gwaii. There's a spell for, Chetumal Bay there, and Hispaniola, or what is this? Yeah, Hispaniola, spell for Cuba. So anyway, it's like spells, songs that were mnemonics, which are things that help you memorize stuff. It's just to memorize geography. And so anyway, that's been my theory. And so I figured that if I could get through to anybody who still is in touch with their ancient traditions, and but also knows English or can be translated to English, I would find out that they have basically the same system, pretty much all around the world. So I figured the Aborigines might be a good way. And also I'd found some websites were saying that the Aboriginal cave paintings are geographical maps, or at least some of them have been identified by Aborigines as geographic maps. So that matches with this, where there's zoomorphic maps of land, like these are zoomorphic maps of islands. But then I found that basically the Aborigines, confirmation that the Aborigines, not only their cave paintings were geography, but also their songs, just like the Egyptian spells, that their songs are also mnemonics to memorize geography. And then I found confirmation that some of those songs are also to memorize oceanic navigation, like sailing in the Torres Strait. So that would more directly match with most of the Egyptian spells, traveling spells, since most of those are by sea, although some of those are by land as well. And the ones that are by land seem to be in Australia, or somewhere in that region, probably Australia. But so anyway, I was reading Songlines, which is about a book about those Aboriginal songs that memorize geography. And it's actually the book that coined the term songlines. 1987 book, and the author, he has the same theory as me, which is that this represents a universal ancient system, that this was the same as what the works of Homer, and other just ancient mythology in general, was probably mnemonics to memorize geography. And so, let's see. So this is his book, which I just finished. Fascinating book, which apparently was one of the most well-regarded British books of the 80s and put British travel writers on the map. And this actually includes some of these symbolic geographic maps, like where they would use these to show different types of vegetation, etc. So let's see. So Bruce Chatwin, the writer, this is towards the end of the book. He says, these songlines were largely about trade. So people traveling to trade with other nations, other tribes, and they would trade songlines too and share their songlines. Trade means friendship and cooperation, and for the Aboriginal, the principal object of trade was song. Song therefore brought peace, yet I felt the songlines were not necessarily an Australian phenomenon, but universal, that they were the means by which man marked out his territory and so organized his social life. All other successive systems were variants or perversions of this original model, and he had just explained how these boards on which people paint their songlines are traded. And so that's similar to like the Babylonian kuduru or whatever they're called, the boundary stones that are probably basically the same thing. The main songlines in Australia appear to enter the country from the north or the northwest, from across the Timor Sea or the Torres Strait, and from there weave their way southwards across the continent. One has the impression that they represent the routes of the first Australians and that they have come from somewhere else. How long ago? 50,000 years, 80 or 100,000 years? The dates are insignificant compared to those from African prehistory. And here I must take a leap into faith, into regions I would not expect anyone to follow. I have a vision of the songlines stretching across the continents and ages, that wherever men have trodden, they have left a trail of song, of which we may now and then catch an echo, and that these trails must reach back in time and space to an isolated pocket in the African savanna, where the first man, opening his mouth in defiance of the terrors that surrounded him, shouted the opening stanza of the world song, I Am. Let me go one step further. Let us imagine Father Adam, Homo sapiens, strolling around the garden. He puts a left foot forward and names a flower. He puts a right foot forward and names a stone. This is how the Aboriginal songlines work. It starts with the left side, describes things on the left side, and then on the right side. And these are considered the footprints of the gods or the ancestors. The verb carries him to the next stanza of the song. All animals, insects, birds, mammals, dolphins, fish, and humpback whales have a navigational system we call triangulation. The mysteries of Chomskyan innate sentence structure become very simple if they are thought of as a human triangulation. Subject, object, verb. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly if he's right about that or not, but could be. Okay, what's interesting? So yeah, here's astronomy and songline connections of the saltwater Aboriginal peoples of the New South Wales coast. So they probably have sailing songlines. All right, so I can't find the quote I'm looking for, which is supposed to be the next page, but there's this, which is the same quote in a different book. So he quotes this book, which Chatwin and this other author both quote the same quotes from the Daughters of Copper Woman. At another end of the Pacific, the native peoples sang their way through the seas. In her account, the Daughters of Copper Woman, Anne Cameron recalls the words of her grandmother. Everything we ever knew. So her grandmother is a Nootka, native of was a Nootka native of Vancouver Island. So, which is the gatekeeper in the Egyptian system. Vancouver Island seems to be the gatekeeper of the Western U.S., or possibly it's Haida Gwaii, but likely Vancouver Island and the Salish Sea. So anyway, in her account, the daughters of Copper Woman, Anne Cameron recalls the words of her grandmother. Everything we ever knew about the movement of the sea was preserved in the verses of a song. For thousands of years we went where we wanted and came home safe because of the song. On clear nights we had the stars to guide us, and in the fog we had the streams and creeks of the sea, the streams and creeks that flow into and become Clyn Otto. Clyn Otto is like a major current that runs along Alaska, I believe. There was a song for going to China, and a song for going to Japan, a song for the big island, and a song for the smaller one. All she had to know was the song, and she knew where she was. To get back, she just sang the song in reverse. So this is the same as what the Aborigines do. They have the song to travel, and then to get back, they just sing the song backwards. But this also confirms that, the Native Americans testified that they knew about China, not only knew about Asia, but they traveled there and had songs about it, which is what I've been saying. I found, Mayan and Aztec books showing Siberia, and no doubt accompanied by, verses that pertain to that. And plus, it's like, if you live in, Vancouver or Alaska, the idea that you wouldn't know Asia is right next to you is ridiculous. Like, literally, you had to just not have any kind of, understanding of how anything works to, buy that bullshit. And yet, that's, I guess, the modern mind is a stupid mind because people buy it, or at least an unexamining mind. Here, too, the songs were the legacies of the families who inherited them from their lineages. The sickness killed off the songs, Cameron's grandmother tells her, recounting the fate of the tribe with the arrival of the white people. So many people died, so many songs and stories and sea routes and histories. As the lineages died out, so did the songs, and with them were gone the spaces that the songs had marked and the temporalities contained within the songs. And so this is confirmation of a lot of things. And it really shows how the modern academia, as much as it claims to be so pro people of color or whatever, it's not at all. If anybody claims that Native Americans knew about Asia or Europe or Africa, they will be totally dismissed as a pseudoscientist, the way I've been dismissed. But that's what the natives themselves said. The Aztecs, the Moctezuma, king of the Aztecs, he said, we came relatively recently from across the Atlantic. But academia is a white supremacist institution, and it will never actually listen to people of color. It will always reject them out of hand and then put its own words in their mouth. So, yeah. Academia is not woke. Academia is fucking fake. So that to me is huge. That's very important. Anyway, so I ordered that book, of course. That should arrive in a week or so. And what else we got here? Oh yeah, this is what that quote was from. What is in a Rim? It's about the Pacific Rim by Arif Dirlik. He starts out by talking about the Australian Aboriginal song lines, and then he goes into the Nootka quotes. And this is an article about this stuff by this trans-Australian person, Bo James of the Mununjali clan of Queensland. But, I think it's a good article, more or less. And it shows how they have this similar type of geometric type of maps as the Egyptians had some of these weird, like, symbolic geometric maps. Songlines, the art of navigating the indigenous world. For thousands upon thousands of years, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have navigated their way across the lands and seas of Australia using paths called songlines or dreaming tracks. So dreaming makes sense because it's metaphorical, it's imaginary, therefore it's similar to a dream. It is imaginary and real. It's imaginary symbolism symbolizing very real geography. Travelers paddle a ghoul canoe, which is a key symbol of connectivity in Zenad Kes, which is Torres Strait between Australia and Papua. Cosmology, navigating all the cycles of land, sea, sky, and spiritual life. So that's like the Egyptian. Everything is a boat. All their oldest art is full of boats. Thousands dreaming tracks. A songline is based around the creator beings and their formation of the lands and waters using the dreaming creation of earth. It explains the landmarks, rock formations, watering holes, rivers, trees, sky, and seas. Clan groups can, for example, demonstrate their infinite knowledge of place in the songs and dances passed down from generation to generation, in turn creating dreaming tracks for their area. Songlines will often follow from one another, creating an intricate oral map of place. Earth and water songlines are mirrored by sky songlines, so that's the same as the Egyptian. They have spells about the sky and spells about the earth and the sea, allowing people to travel vast distances and highlighting the deep connection they have to earth and sea. Songlines are central to the existence of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and are imperative to the preservation of the world's oldest living culture and its